All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to FAFSA Ready, Set, Go Live, where we help you unlock financial aid to support your college dreams. My name is Katisha Tony, and I am the president and CEO of Coats Inc. And I am excited to introduce you to our FAFSA Live sessions. These sessions will take place every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. throughout the month of August to provide our communities with comprehensive financial support. Whether you need help understanding FAFSA, completing the application, finding scholarship information, or exploring local opportunities in all things financial aid, we've got you covered. We know families often have questions about FAFSA or financial aid packages and may not always know where to turn. Our goal is to eliminate barriers and provide the support you need. So during these sessions, you'll hear from our qualified staff and sometimes from experts in the field of financial aid and FAFSA. So today we are talking about scholarships and financial aid. And we are going to be joined by Tanika House, the Associate Director of Financial Aid at Purdue University Northwest. This is one of my go-to people when it comes to financial aid and scholarships. So I am excited to have her join us on this Tuesday's Talk with Experts.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Katisha. Always, it's a pleasure when you always invite me to talk about what I love most, that's actually funding some of those resources that may be available for the students and their families. So, again, I am Tanika House. I'm the Associate Director of Financial Aid. So, I certainly welcome you guys to hear some of the information I would like to share referencing paying for college. So, there's so many different resources available for students when it comes to, or for students and their families, when it comes to paying for some of those educational costs. It can include some of those personal resources. Some students and their families may have a 529 savings plan. You may have some resources available through your employer. There may be some scholarships and things like that. But one thing that I stick near and dear to is students completing their free application for federal student aid, and that's their FAFSA application. Um, that FAFSA application is exactly what it stands for. It's a free application to see if you qualify for some of those resources that may come from the federal government and or the state. So what financial aid does, it helps cover some of those college expenses. So such as your tuition and fees, your housing and food, books and supplies, transportation, things like that. That's all part of your cost of attendance, in which financial aid can definitely help fund some of those expenses. So, how does financial aid works? So, we're going to get to the application part, but how does it work? There's many different types of financial aid, right? So you have grants. That's money that the student does not have to pay back. You have scholarships. You have actually student loans. That's part of financial aid. And then also you have student employment. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So the free application for federal student aid. So in order to qualify for the federal and or the state, there's an application that students actually have to submit this application. And I believe now that we are in going forward to the 24-25 and moving forward for the academic year, that it's mandatory that all high school seniors submit this FAFSA application to determine if you qualify for some of that financial aid funding. So how does it work? So students have to complete an application on studentaid.gov. And that is a website where what we call as a FAFSA website, that students and their families would complete this application to determine their eligibility. They can do it online at studentaid.gov. Even the old school paper application is still available for students to do this application to see what you may be eligible to receive. But again, it's studentaid.gov, not .com, not .org, or any other sites, or .com, things like that. You want to make sure that you actually log on to the government site, which is studentaid.gov, and certainly not paying anyone any money to do this application for you. It is a free application for federal student aid. Okay, so that's exactly what it stands for. You do not have to pay anyone any money to do this application for you.
Mhm.
Thank you for bringing that up. Um, Also, before you submit this application, the federal processor indicates that you have to create a federal student aid ID. So that's important because that's used as your electronic signature and what we call as a FSA ID. So the student and the parents. So depending on the filing status of your taxes and things like that, your household status determines if that federal student aid ID is needed. But certainly the student would have to complete a federal student aid ID, creating your username and password, which again is used as your electronic signature. So the federal student ID, you're actually inputting your social security number. So you have to have that first and last name, middle initial, your date of birth, street address, email address, not your school, high school email address, but you have to have a personal email. Okay. Because once you leave high school, that email address actually expires. So you want to make sure that you are using an email address, your personal email address that you're going to use for the next 4 years. So again, the student and also the parent or parents will need to create their FSA ID, which is actually completed on the student aid ID on the studentaid.gov site where you actually do your FAFSA application. So when you start the application, it'll ask for you to log in. If you know you don't have a login, you just have to be directed to creating that account. Okay. So thanks, Katisha, for bringing that up. I like that. So so when you're submitting your application, so make sure that you're completing the FAFSA application that is available. It's available every year, October 1st. Well, fingers crossed, October 1st, for it to be available. This past academic year, it was not available until January 1. So just keep in contact with Katisha and the family. I say in the family and her team to determine when that FAFSA application is available, because it's important for, especially for the high school seniors, because it is a required form that you have to submit for a graduation requirement. So it's available every year, technically October 1st. And we want, the deadline date to submit this application to determine if you qualify for any state funding. If you're an Indiana resident, it's April 15th. However, if you're Illinois or any other resident of your state, that particular deadline date or filing deadline date, it varies by the state. Okay, so make sure that you look at that. But Indiana is April 15th. So available October 1st, submit by the April 15th deadline date. So when you're paying for your education through the financial aid process, when you're submitting the application, let me just mention that sometimes you may be selected for a process called verification. So this verification process, meaning that the information provided on your FAFSA application, the school have to verify that information. It can mean that we can request a copy of your taxes, a copy of your social security card, birth certificate, anything that that the federal processor says that we have to select you for a process of verification for, you have to submit those documentations to us. So when you submit that application, just check with the school of your choice that you are looking to attend to see if you are selected for verification. So that's one payment option that I always like to talk about when it comes to funding some of your education, for some of those educational costs. Of course, you have your scholarships to look at and some of those other personal resources. So the types of financial aid. Once you submit this application, the federal processor receives it. The schools listed on your FAFSA application will receive your FAFSA application, and the state will receive your FAFSA application. So the state has to receive it to see if you qualify for state awards and if you submitted it by their priority deadline date. The federal will make sure that you had a successful completed application to see if you qualify for their funding, for their fundings. And then also the school, there may be some institutional funds that you may qualify for just by you submitting this FAFSA application. So the gift aid that you may qualify for through financial aid, which is money that you don't have to pay back, um, could be a federal Pell Grant. It could be a supplemental educational opportunity grant. If you are a Indiana resident, it can be a Frank O'Bannon grant. It can be a 21st Century Scholar. If you're Illinois, of course, they have their own particular state grant, which is called a MAP grant. But the federal grants, the state grants, and then also you have your scholarships. That's considered gift aid. That's money that you do not have to pay back. The self-help aid is money to be earned and or repaid. So you may be offered federal work study. That's campus employment. So what happens is that the government covers your salary while you're enrolled in school. So that is money that the student that they do not have to pay back. They actually are working and going to school at the same time per se, and not working no more than 20 hours per week because your education is more important. But that's money that you're earning while you are on campus. So if you're interested in federal work study or working on campus, make sure you meet with your financial aid representative. But then also you also have money to be repaid, and that's your direct student loans that everyone always talks about, because loans, unfortunately, are part of financial aid. You can be eligible for a subsidized and or an unsubsidized loan. So the difference between the two is that the subsidized loans are the interest-free loans, and the unsubsidized loan, it accrues interest monthly. So you're having to pay that interest monthly. That's on your account. It actually bills up monthly. And those particular student loans do not go into repayment until 6 months after you graduate college. If you fall below 6 credit hours or stop attending for any reason, that's when those loans goes into repayment. So yes, taking out a loan is a serious responsibility for repayment. It's the responsibility of the student to repay those loans. That's why I always encourage students and their families to search for some of the money that you do not have to pay back, and that's scholarships that may be offered to you. But before I talk about scholarships, let me talk about the Parent Plus loan, because that loan will be offered to the parent as well. But there's interest rates that's tied to the student loan as well as the parent loan. So the student loan interest rate is about 6.53%. And so remember, I said that unsubsidized loan, it accrues interest monthly. So it just adds up monthly that you can pay if you choose to. If not, it just adds up monthly. So again, the repayment doesn't go into repayment until 6 months after you graduate. So the Parent Plus loan, that's considered an unsubsidized loan if the parent chooses to take out a loan on the student's behalf. It doesn't have to go into repayment until 6 months after the student graduates, but the interest rate on there is about 9.08%. Okay, so financial aid package, federal aid, state aid, you could be eligible for student loans, federal work study. That consists of your financial aid package that you may be eligible for. Now with scholarships, I wholeheartedly like to talk about scholarships because I once had a student that was in college, and sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get students to apply for scholarships, but it's so many different ones that are out there that you can apply for, whether it be your place of employment or a place where your parents work at. There could be something based on your major, based on your career choice, based on membership in organizations. Based on the state that you live in, based on military services. So there's so many different scholarships out there that you can possibly qualify for. And one in particular that I know I always talk about, that I always mention, I've been mentioning for years. When I started searching for scholarships for my student when he was in college, because he was so lazy. He didn't want to get out there and search for scholarships, of course, and he didn't want to write those infamous essays that you have to get out there and search for. So I went out there too. So I was a little bit of a helicopter parent, so that's okay. But right, it's like I'm a little bit of helicopter. So I just wanted to make sure that he understood, like, hey, it takes a little bit of effort, to get out there, and you have to search for these. So one in particular that he did win was the scholarship for students that have asthma. So my son has asthma, and he received a $1,000 scholarship every academic year. So usually, when how your financial aid package works, it works for an academic year. So the academic year consists of 2 semesters, fall, spring. So whatever you are awarded, it's going to be split in half between the 2 semesters. Okay, so he received $500 for the fall, $500 for the spring. At least that was $500 I did not have to pay out of pocket. So after that, we just looked at so many different other scholarships that may be available for students. So many of them out there. You have something?
Where did you go when you got that scholarship? Because I always wonder, you have FastWeb and all of those other places. I'm like, do those actually,
Yes.
work? So you're pretty much saying that it works. So
Oh,
where did you
yeah.
go to get that? Where'd you go to get that information?
Oh, yeah. So on FastWeb, real quick, FastWeb is the largest scholarship search site. So they create their profile, and scholarships are matched with their profile. That's it.
Hmm.
And then you have scholarships that the school offers, your high school offers. And then you also have scholarships that the university that you're going to be attending offers scholarships. But this one in particular, I was like, you know what? Let me see if they have scholarship for students that have asthma. And I'm a Googler, so I'm going to Google. So I Googled, and there was a scholarship for students that have asthma. And so once I found out that they had a scholarship for students that have asthma, I said, well, look at here. They must have a lot of different ones that I can get out there and search for. Well, he didn't search for anything. I give myself the credit. So he didn't get out there and search for nothing. So I even came across, you got the left-hand scholarship that does exist. They even have a website for left-hand students. That's another topic, that they have something that's geared towards left-hand students. But I came across one for Beyonce's husband. His name is Sean Carter. So a lot of students don't know his name is Sean Carter, and he has Sean Carter Foundation. So I had a couple of my student workers apply for him, and it was $2,500 that they won. They had no idea who Jay-Z or Sean Carter was, but they won his scholarship, but they knew who Beyonce was. They knew who he was. But fastweb.com, that's your largest scholarship search site to search for scholarships. You can go to scholarships.com. They have tons.
Okay.
On scholarships.com, you can actually put what your major is. So when students come to me and say, well, I'm majoring in engineering or business or nursing, I just put scholarships.com, and then I put nursing. Scholarships.com, I put that, so they will give you a whole list of scholarships tied specifically to your program of study.
I'm just glad you said that you received the scholarship, because I have heard so many people say, well, do you really get it? And I always tell them, yes, you'll get it, but I hadn't actually seen anyone who did. So hearing from you, like you actually get these, and this is
yeah.
And somebody working in financial aid, that's good to know.
Yeah. And you know what? Scholarships aren't guaranteed. It's like the lottery.
Yeah.
So you submit an application, don't be discouraged. You just got to get out there and submit as many as you can.
Right.
There's no limit to how many you submit. You just got to get out there and just effortlessly do the effort and get out there and you submit those scholarships as much as you can. A lot of the essay questions you have to do, and a lot of the essay questions are the same. So if they're the same, copy and paste all day long. So if it's $50, $100, $200, it doesn't matter. At least that's money that you don't have to pay back. And then one thing that I did learn from some students that had come in, and they had nothing but scholarships. And they said, well, Tanika, this is what I did. They looked at some of the household products in their home and looked up those household products, and they had like little small scholarships. I said, well, I learned something new each time. I do. Yeah. I actually like that idea, because Dove has one, and Palmolive,
everybody.
Them cereal, you look on them cereal boxes, they have scholarships, but you can go to weirdscholarships.com. They have some real fun ones, like milk mustache contests, things like that, or duct tape contests. I know you guys
I heard about that with the duct tape, where you make like a dress out of it or something like that.
Amazing. I'm like, look at the talent. And they actually put on there who those winners are each time. So I'm like, wow. And actually, I think we have a student that's coming here who won the duct tape contest. It was like $15,000.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm like, it just takes a lot to get out there and search for them. But you have to be careful with scholarship scams, unfortunately. If someone is asking for a processing fee or your social security number, that's part of a scam. You should only be providing your general information and not paying no processing fee and things like that. Essays, of course, but just get out there and just keep submitting those applications as much as you can, because a lot of them, they do go unused because a lot of students do get discouraged.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. I think I talked about loans and Parent Plus loans and things like that. But a helpful website, of course, is studentaid.gov. They actually have combined a lot of that information on there, whether it comes from scholarships, your financial aid, outside resources, and things like that. That is just like one platform that students can actually log on to submit their information and apply for.
Okay. Studentaid.gov.
Studentaid.gov is the best site. Yeah, that's the best site. And again, with the guidance counselors, when they're in high school, tell them to reach out, because there may be some community scholarships out there that the students may qualify for, that only that particular school have. Just like Westside High School, they have scholarships that are only geared to Westside High School.
Mm.
And I'm like, and nobody's applying. Oh, that just makes me mad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's tied specifically to Westside High School. So just imagine if they have them, the other high schools may have them too. That is just something that is geared specifically to their school. So,
Tanika, I have a question. Are there any scholarships specific to Purdue University Northwest that maybe, or surrounding cities, that students should be aware of? We've been finding some hidden gems in the different universities across
yeah.
Northwest Indiana. So you have to tell us about Purdue's hidden gems.
So here's the thing about Purdue. So they have actually, we have a new platform, and it's called Scholarship Universe. But the thing about our scholarships is that you have to be a Purdue student in order to log in to get these, to have access to these particular scholarships. Our scholarship application goes out every year, October 1st, and we give students until March to submit the application. But yeah, it's like locked where it's almost like you have to commit yourself, because you have to have Purdue login to create your profile to apply for these particular scholarships. Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, but let me tell you something about Scholarship Universe. Scholarship Universe is almost similar to Fast Web. You create your profile, and scholarships are matched with your profile.
So this is not just Purdue then? Is it
Some schools may be on the bandwagon with this particular platform. We have this built in for Purdue University.
So a student would first have to apply for Purdue and get the
login. They have to
they
have
have to
their
do it.
login.
I'm trying to understand, is they, just for clarity, because this is new, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So they have to apply to Purdue and be accepted before they can apply for scholarships, or
That is
can
correct.
they? Okay.
Yeah, that is correct, because they have to actually have their Purdue authentication, their username and password to log in. And so if they have that, then that means they've accepted.
Okay.
And so they said it's only for Purdue authentication, so their username and password. Yeah. Yeah. But there are some external scholarships that are on our website, mainly like Fast Web. You even have Unigo. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Unigo. That's one. Let me see. Let me pull up my. Actually, you know what? What I'll do is I'll send you a list of our of scholarships, external scholarships. It's like tons on there. based on your different backgrounds and things like that. So I'll definitely, yeah, Unigo is a really good one too. Let me see what's another one. Unigo, that's web scholarships.com. They even have one on here that says supercollege.com. And then of course College Board.
Oh yeah.
College Board have one. And then CAPEX. I'm not sure if you heard of CAPEX before.
Yeah, CapEx.
Yeah, so that's another good one too.
Okay.
But
I,
maybe,
I want to go back to the scholarship universe. Is this
yes,
new this year or was this
started last year,
started last year?
the
Okay.
23-24. Yep. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
outside of that, are there any, even though you have to apply to get those scholarships, are there any like local scholarships like linked to like the area in Purdue Northwest that they can still get scholarships for? Like I know College Bound is one.
Yeah, College Bound definitely is one. That's for Hammond residents only. That's I don't Is that on our website? Yeah, I'm not sure if it's on our website or not because that's for Hammond residents only. And I'm assuming that they don't want everyone applying for it because everybody don't qualify.
Yeah.
Within the community, no. So in the Purdue Scholarship Universe, you have some donors who are tied to Purdue University.
Okay.
There are specific donors that contribute to the scholarships for Purdue University students only. Within the community, that could be some of the donors that is tied to for Purdue University students only. Just like any other school, they have their own scholarship donors that if you're attending Valpo or IUN or something like that, they have their own particular donors who say this is just for these students only that attend here. Yeah. That
Now,
the external ones would be through FastWeb, scholarship.com, things like that.
I want to go back to College Bound real quick because we were talking
Oh, yes.
the other day. IUN had some scholarships that they provided that had some kind of stipulations to it. So I wanted to ask you, because I know College Bound is more Hammond students, and I'm sure a lot of Hammond students end up going to Purdue Northwest. How does that tie into financial aid? Does it like if you're a 21st century scholar, then you don't get as much, or, like because you're in the financial aid department, trying to get a little more detail around
Absolutely.
what that looks like when they actually receive it, because it's tuition based, right? It's only tuition.
It's only tuition. So here's the thing with when we have 21st century scholars. So 21st century scholar only covers tuition only. So no fees, no books, things like that. So if they have College Bound will pick up those fees, their books, and things like that. Okay. So state aid is not refundable. So it doesn't matter how much you've been awarded. It's only going to cover the cost of your tuition and fees with that combined. Okay. Even if you have a Franco-Bannon. So some students think, if I'm not eligible for 21st century, what other state aid can I get? They may qualify for Franco-Bannon. Okay. And while I'm on the topic of the state aid, because of, if you know any seniors that have had some challenges submitting their FAFSA application for this 24-25 aid year, they may have missed that April 15th deadline date to qualify for the state aid. If they don't see it on their financial aid package, tell them to do an appeal with the state. They can do an appeal. So they would have to log into ScholarTrack. And let me take my glasses off. They have to log into ScholarTrack and say that they've had some challenges submitting the application, in which a lot of students did. They really did. They had some challenges, and it just was not being successful. It wasn't working with them. So just appeal it through the state and see if you're able to get some state aid.
Okay.
Don't give up that easy. Don't give up that easy and say, okay, now I got to take out student loans because I don't have enough federal Pell Grant to pay for my classes. Okay. See if you're able to get that state grant. Yeah. So that's how the state works. State covers tuition. 21st century covers tuition only, no fees, books, nothing like that. So that's where the College Bound would pick up at. So if the student is not a Hammond resident, not eligible for College Bound, but they have a 21st century scholar will cover their tuition and then their federal Pell Grant will pick up the rest of the fees, like book fees and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Or housing, if they're living on campus, it'll help them pick up some of that. Yeah.
I have another question. Were you all able to track like how many students actually logged into like your scholarship universe? Did you find that a lot of students did not utilize this tool, or did you find that a lot of students did go ahead and utilize the tool and actually obtain scholarships?
Oh yeah, with Scholarship Universe, I don't care where I'm at. If I'm doing a classroom presentation or I'm doing new student orientation, things like that, I tell the students to pull out their phones and let's register for this this Scholarship Universe. So we probably have more than well, I would say more than half. We have about, I want to say about 8,000 students here. We probably have over half of those scholarships have been submitted. So which is really good. Which is really good. Now, here's the thing. They've logged in, created their account, their profile, and things like that. The scholarships are matched with them. So it can be over 100 scholarships matched with them. Now, have the students went out there and actually applied for those different scholarships? That's yet to be determined. But as far as when they submit the Scholarship Universe, we do have a Purdue scholarship application. We have our own in-house scholarship. If you submitted by the deadline date, we probably have over 2,000 or so applications of students that have submitted for the Purdue General Scholarship. Okay, just by them completing that application, that have submitted the application. Yeah.
So then I know you talked a little bit about the deadline. October 1st is when they have to apply.
Yeah.
So that does align to because I usually always say October 1 and November 1 are really big deadlines for students, but essentially they have to apply first. So they need to
apply
in August, September in order to even qualify for that November 1st deadline.
Right. That is correct. That is correct. So those deadlines means a lot, especially, even with scholarships. Some of those donors require you to have a scholarship application on file and submitted by the deadline date to qualify for their scholarship. So when these schools are out there and they're having you to submit these applications, you got to get out there and you got to submit them. You got to submit those scholarships as soon as they're available. Submit them. Don't wait until the last minute. Just submit those applications. I know for you, Katisha and Shannon, if you guys want to, I'm having a guidance counselors workshop. And we've been doing this with the state and with the federal. They come and speak to all of the guidance counselors throughout the state of Indiana. They come from near and far. And this is September 10th. It's from 8 o'clock until 12:30. We have like a light continental breakfast, but the state and the federal will be present to provide those updates, especially to let us know if there's any new updates from the FAFSA application going forward. Okay. And if it's going to be available October 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering, are there, when you talk about these scholarships, it's always like, are there any scholarships that are like most students are actually applying to, or are there any that are like overlooked but are valuable for students that maybe you can kind of highlight? Like I know there's this big scholarship area that you need to the Scholarship Universe, but where in Scholarship Universe, like which ones are highly applied for and which ones are kind of like the low-hanging fruit that some people might be able to take advantage of?
So the low-hanging ones that students normally would just be like, oh, okay, I'll apply, would be the ones that an essay is not needed. Those are the easy ones. Like, okay, I can do that. Okay, I can do that. That's easy enough. That's easier said than done. But the ones that are overlooked are the ones that they do have to do essays for. And that's why a lot of the scholarship dollars goes unused. It's like millions of dollars goes unused because nobody wants to submit an essay. And that's the important part of it. You have to do those essays. It's like my son would say when, he was trying to do his thing back in the MySpace days. So He's like, it's like doing a homework assignment. I get it. I get it. But at least that's money that you don't have to pay back. You know, you have to do some essays. It's an effort on your part. This is free money. You know, they want you, the donors want you to put some sort of effort into it. You're asking for their money, right? So you got to put some sort of effort in there, and you have to do these essays. You know, like I had told them back then, I said, come on. I said, I even found a scholarship for students that want to be part of an asparagus club. Look that up, asparagus club scholarship. And I said, well, wow. He said, Ma, I don't even like asparagus. I said, well, you'll love it for 500. So let's go ahead and we're going to submit this application. He said, I don't want to be part of no club. You know, I don't expect students to be part of no asparagus club, but there's so many different ones out there. They're fun. You know, they have a zombie apocalypse one. You know, if zombies were ever to attack you, what would be your survival technique? I mean, stuff like that. They're just fun. And I told students, I know that you can write an essay on that. I know you can. Just be, you know, use your imagination and get out there and do some things, you know? So I love it. Yeah.
You almost have to like let them know that, look at this, like if you get this scholarship, you paid, you know, you took an hour or however long, like even if it took you 4 hours to research,
even if it took you 4 hours.
That means you got paid $1,000 an hour if you got a $5,000 scholarship.
Absolutely.
You know, like, or even more than that. You know, like you got to look at it in the long term, because I mean, how much do you make an hour at your part-time job? You know, like,
absolutely. And then here's the thing about scholarships is that, you know, they could be recurring dollars. So you don't have to apply for that same one every time. They may continue to give that to you for the next 4 years based on your GPA and make sure that you're meeting the criteria. That's it. Yeah, I absolutely love when it comes to talking about scholarships, because there's so many different ones out there. You know, for people that like to shop a lot, Nordstrom's, you know, Nordstrom Rack has one. They have found that. Nordstrom's have one, you know. So, I mean, McDonald's, Burger King, you know, Pizza Hut. I mean, those places, they have scholarships. They have scholarships. And, you know, when I get out there and you talk to, like I did a presentation for the middle school, like sixth graders, you know, at that time, they're like, you know, I don't want to hear about this stuff. But they can apply for scholarships at that age too. And it can just, you know, they can build those, they can rack those scholarships up. You know, they have a Dr. Pepper one. They got a Jiffy peanut butter one. That's like 20, I think it's 20,000, something like that, for middle school students to apply for. So I'm telling you, it's so many that I know I've probably missed the mark on, but it's just too many of them out there for students not to be jumping on board and be so quick to say, I just want to take out the student loan, or I'm just going to use my credit card to pay my balance and things like that. It's just too many scholarships out there. They should be starting, if they didn't get it in middle school, they should be starting in their freshman year in high school. They should be applying for scholarships at that age going forward.
I do want to ask another question. I know you mentioned that for Purdue, the scholarship universe, October 1st until a specific deadline. If money is still left, can people come back and say, do you have additional, you know, financial aid dollars that are available? Like if it's at the end and it hasn't been allocated, is that an option for some students and families? Like maybe they decided that they wanted to go to Purdue kind of at the later, and after that October 1st deadline, they apply, they have a good, you know, good GPA or anything like that. Can they advocate and reach out to financial aid and say, hey, are there additional dollars that are available?
Absolutely. There's always ways to look to see if there's additional funding available. I even tell students that what if there were like loss of income, funeral expenses, medical expenses, things like that. Every school has a special circumstance administrator. So with these special circumstance administrators, they can make that professional judgment to see if there's additional funding available based on making those edits on their account. Because when they're doing the FAFSA application, it's just looking at the household income. It's not looking at those special circumstances. So if there's special circumstances that may have affected that household income, we can go back in to recalculate, edit, and see if there's additional funding available. So many loopholes.
That's
so
good.
Many loopholes.
Because I tell people all the time, like, advocate. Like, you have to advocate for yourself. I mean,
You
the only
have to
thing you can do
advocate.
is ask, right? If you ask,
Yeah.
and maybe you'll get something,
Yeah, you
especially
got to
in
advocate.
circumstances. So
Yeah.
that's good to know and hearing from you as a financial aid expert to say, like,
Yes.
yes, that happens and people can do that. And they just, what do they do? Just do they email? Should they come to the office?
Email, come to the office, doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They can
That
email
would
us.
bring me to a question. So are there any programs available that you can name that provide additional kind of support and assistance if people don't have access to scholarships and funding?
So the additional resources, well, first would be the FAFSA to see if there's some additional funding available. Okay, that's the first step. If there's special circumstances, come and talk to the schools in reference to the special circumstances. What's going on? Tell us something. Secondly, you have, I always tell, I dig deep. So because I missed the mark on some of those military benefits. So if you are a child of a disabled veteran, if your grandfather was in World War One, two, three, whatever, there's no three, World War Two, if they were in, there could be some benefits for their grandkids, right? So that's some resources there in itself. You have some students that may have, the special circumstances kind of runs deep. You may have some students that, hey, my parents won't provide financial support at all. I'm not with my parents.
Yeah.
In special circumstances, you got to come talk to a special circumstance administrator. You have to. There's resources for foster kids. There's Work One. Work One provides and helps students with their costs, with their educational costs. It's just so many different ones out there that students can tap into. But sometimes I know the students kind of shy away and they really don't know what questions to ask. But I know I've been in financial aid so long. I'd be like, I know what question you want to ask, and I'm usually like digging and digging and digging. What about this? What about this? Because I'm always trying to find some sort of resource for them. Even the school, they have like emergency funds, that they can help the students with. So it's some resources out here. It's just that students have to speak up. They have to speak up. I tell them all the time, eventually you're going to have to speak up because you're going to be enrolled in communication class 114, where you have to get up in front of the class and you have to talk. That's one of the classes. So you have to learn how to speak up and speak out. You got to learn how to communicate. There's too many resources that are available on these college campuses that these students are not utilizing that they should be. Because the worst case scenario is if they're not doing well in their classes and they lose their financial aid.
Yeah.
What do I do next? So a lot of students, they just say, I give up, I'm going to stop attending. So if I come across some of those students, I do a lot. I got probably over 500 so appeals that I got to look at. But you can do an appeal for your financial aid because life happens.
Yeah.
Life happens. So you can do what we call as a satisfactory academic progress appeal to see if you can regain your financial aid back. And more than likely, if you get me, if you come here, I'm super lenient and I'm like, I know you can do it. I believe in you. We're going to get you going. And normally 9 times out of 10, they do well. They don't have to come back and see me for an appeal. So, so it's different things, different scenarios and resources available.
The biggest thing is, like
I
you
have
said.
a question.
Oh, sure.
Oh, sorry. So that's great, right? That there's the option to have that appeal, right? Because life does happen.
Yes.
But I have a question on going back to how you said it was really important for students to start applying for those scholarships freshman year in high school. And in high school, students also tend to take dual credit classes. So my question was, how does participating in these dual credit courses impact the students' financial aid opportunities in college?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. So dual credit courses, I absolutely love because my daughter, she had taken some dual credit. She attended HAST when she graduated some years ago, and she graduated with 31 credit hours. So coming into a university with 31 credit hours, you're not coming in as an incoming freshman. You're coming in as a sophomore status.
Yeah.
So whatever financial aid that you're eligible for, your financial aid is based on the income that's reported on the FAFSA application, but you could certainly qualify for some additional aid based on your grade classification. Okay. So that does play a big role. So as an incoming freshman, you may be eligible for what they call recruitment scholarships. Recruitment dollars comes from you being an incoming freshman. Admissions they're looking at your high school GPA and your SAT and test scores and things like that. As a dual credit student coming in, if your status is a sophomore, junior, things like that, then now you're looking at additional scholarship dollars, like a transfer type scholarship, type things like that, based on your grade classification. So the higher your grade classification, possibly the more resources that you can tap into. So that's a great benefit to have. And I think the schools are actually pushing students to take and enroll in those dual credit courses to graduate early, because technically it takes about 120 credit hours to graduate in 4 years. So just imagine you in those dual credits, you're out of here in a couple of years. You're out of here in a couple of years. Yeah. So
speaking on the dual credit question that Melissa raised, I'm wondering, I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse or not. What does it cost for dual credit for students nowadays? Like if they're taking them in the high school, is it a fee for them? Is it different between concurrent enrollment versus dual credit at the school? Can you clarify a little bit around like what those costs will be for a student who might want to take some dual credit courses?
So the dual credit courses normally runs, like, I can only speak, well, I can actually look at some of the students, but I worked with a lot with the HAS students who were taking it at the ACC Area Career Center, and I'm not even sure if that's still around. But they were taking those classes there, which were connected to Purdue Northwest. And it was roughly about $75 for the class, as opposed to taking just paying for a regular college course that's going to run you about almost $239 per credit hour. Okay, so $75 for one class versus almost $800 for a course. Okay, so you want to take those. It's definitely cost efficient when you're taking them during the high school. But here's the thing with the high school, even though that dual credit is amazing, students don't realize that those dual credits follow you. They follow you. So if you don't do good in those classes, guess what your status is going to look like coming into that university, ineligible for financial aid. And you have to do an appeal. And so a lot of students that I'm contacting, they're like, I don't even know what that is. What happened? I mean, I was in high school taking a class and I just didn't go to class. I just didn't know. I didn't do well. They didn't take it serious. Those credits are counted in your program of study. The Department of Education looks at those. So it is very important. It does cost, but it is very cost efficient. So if you're able to take those classes during high school, please do, because it's a lot more, it's costly when you actually attend college.
And I just want to, let's reiterate that.
Yeah.
The importance of doing well in the class. If you do not end up with a C or higher, it does not look well on your academic record going into college. So I think you also have the option. I always say this, when your schools are now, making sure students take dual credit, kind of pushing them into classes, to be honest, sometimes you have the right to say, I do not want to take that class. If you don't feel like you can handle it, you do not have to take those classes.
Absolutely.
You want to take a class that's going to be really good for you and something that you're going to do well in, because again, it is nice to be able to get the class for $75, but if it's a class you're not going to take seriously, students are taking college classes at a lot earlier of an age. So parents also, if you're listening to this, like parents, making sure that you're seeing what your students are taking and making sure that you say, is this a class that my child is going to do well in? And if they're not, it's going to hurt them in the long run. Because I've seen students go back and now your GPA is low because you have these classes that you did not do well in. You're getting D's and F's, and you can't pick and choose where, I did 3 classes I had an A in and 2 classes I got a D or F in. They all
exactly.
You're not getting just to pick the 3 classes you did well in. It is every class you take is going to go with you. So be very mindful of taking those classes and taking advantage of what, the cost effectiveness of it. But if you are not ready, it is okay to say that you are not ready and that you take it later. So I just
absolutely
make sure people
That's a great point. And even so, with those dual credits, you're taking your prerequisites. So your prerequisite classes are those classes that you have to take before you start your major, your program of study, before you actually start your particular major. So you're taking your math, your so what science, probably psych class, your psychology, things like that, sociology. So you're taking those pre-classes before you actually start your program of study. So you want to get those out the way. You want to pass and complete those. So that way you're not paying any extra coming back and you have to retake those classes. So, but again, just note that they do count towards your academic record. It really does. It counts towards. So you want your academic record, you want your transcript to look immaculate.
Yeah.
Not with a lot of W's, withdrawals like you withdrew from the class, or F's or incompletes and things like that, because it follows you. It really does.
Mm-hmm. And I have one last question around the dual credit piece and financial aid.
Yeah.
Is it true? I know it was in the past, but is that true still now that when you take so many dual credit classes, it goes into your financial aid and what you can take out as a college student? So like, what is it? You only can get how many credit hours? Is 150 to complete or something?
120.
120 to complete.
Yeah.
And if you come in with so many,
it subtracts.
Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't affect you being able to continue to take out financial aid.
No.
Past the years. Okay.
Nope, not at all. It just lessens the time that you are enrolled in college.
Okay.
So it'll probably take you 2 years, as opposed to if you come in, depending on how many credit hours that you come in at. And I've just been seeing a lot of students come in with 30 credit hours.
Okay.
So I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So even if you come in with 12 credit hours, that once you finish your first semester, you'll be your second semester, you may be a sophomore. So it just depends how many credit hours that you're going to be transferring in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Any other final questions from anyone else?
It's a lot of information, I know.
Yeah. Well, it is a lot of information, but it was very informational.
Yes.
And again, I continue to learn a lot, and I hope that people who are viewing learned a lot as well. Thank you, Tanika, for stopping in and sharing your knowledge as usual.
Absolutely.
And remember, we do live sessions every Tuesday during the month of August at 12:30 and 6:30 p.m. Another thing to note is that we have one-on-one FAFSA sessions available to anyone needing direct FAFSA support. We also have bilingual support on some of those days as well. All you have to do is go to our website, www.coatsinc.org, and find our FAFSA page and schedule a one-on-one time with us. The page is also full of FAFSA resources and details that we're updating all the time. Tanika just gave us some more information, and we'll probably add to the website as well. So share our page, share our resources, and follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And thank you. See you next time on FAFSA Ready, Set, Go, where we spend Tuesday talking to experts on all things FAFSA and financial aid. So see you all later.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.